man. Oh, man. Today. Oh, God. Some days I come in here, man, I am ready to scare the crap out of you. I have been shook. When we talked about the FBI raid on the election office in Georgia yesterday, we light touched it. We stuck to the facts, who was there, when it happened, what they're saying, and we said there's a lot of things here that don't smell right, don't look right, don't seem right at all. Oh man, what a difference a day makes. What a difference a day makes. Oh, Scotty. We did it to ourselves today, boy. Before we get into that, there's a couple things that are developing, and obviously I got to follow up, on the possible partial shutdown. Today's the day. Now, I told you that Trump had talked to Schumer and they were working out a deal, and Schumer alluded to it, a deal that separated the DHS funding from the other major funding. Thune initially pushed back. He cited problems that this could, present going forward, especially when it goes back to the House. Well, we're going to see. But the agreement has been made. And they will vote today on this new agreed upon funding. But because it's changed, it has to go back to the House. Keep that in mind. But they have agreed, Republicans and Democrats have agreed to separate the DHS funding from State Department, transportation, some of these other ones, right? And those will be funded through September. The DHS funding will be temporarily funded for 2 weeks so Republicans and Democrats can hash out potential changes in DHS policy. Okay? And you know that Trump signed off on it because he talked about it. Quote, in the social media post that, quote, Republicans and Democrats had come together to get the vast majority of the government funded until September, while at the same time providing an extension to the Department of Homeland Security. Boom, what I just told you. Okay? It's already facing problems. And there are obvious problems. And we will be facing the partial shutdown. First, it's getting muddy because Lindsey Graham is trying to cram in, before the vote, he's trying to cram in protection measures, protecting just senators from having their phone records seized going forward. He's willing to kibosh the whole thing, apparently, over this. And just he or any one senator can kibosh all of this because they are trying to pass all the procedure. They're trying to pass the procedural votes and the arguments and cloture. They're trying to pass it all to get to a unanimous decision to come to a vote, a final vote right away so they can avoid this shutdown. But again, they're not going to. But even if they were to bypass all the procedure, Lindsey Graham's here saying, hey, I want this protection on my phone records. Just mine. Not the House's or anybody else's, just mine. So that could hold it up. Schumer's already getting out in front of it saying Republicans need to get their act together, quote, talking kind of about Lindsey and how slapdash this is going to go back to the House, how rushed it is. Thune said, right now we've got snags on both sides. No, you don't. Trump, the Democrats, and most of your Republicans have got on board. Your snag is Lindsey Graham right now, apparently, because even you have agreed to it, John Thune. But look, it has to go back to the House. The House isn't even scheduled to come back till Monday. So even if they should rush through the procedure, get to the unanimous decision to vote on it right now, pass it right now, need 60 votes, send it to the House, nobody's home. They're not home till Monday. Okay, so that means we're hitting the partial shutdown, at least for a little while. Here we go again, TSA. Here we go again. Now, I do expect the House to hash it out in a fairly expeditious manner, but Speaker Mike Johnson sucks at his job. And there are some in like the Freedom Caucus that said, yeah, we're not opposing, or we're going to oppose any changes, any concessions, any changes. We're not doing it. You fund DHS in full with all these other departments or we're not on board, says the Freedom Caucus. Now, apparently, Trump called them and tried to whip them up, get them on board. And most Republicans are on board with whatever Trump says. So if Trump says, hey, House Republicans, get on board with this temporary DHS funding right now, most of them will do what they're told. We'll see what happens with the Freedom Caucus. It might hit a little bit of a delay, but I expect sometime next week, House Republicans get their crap aligned and in order and get on board. Do they get on board with the version that the Senate gives them? Or do they get on board with some more changes, which would have to go back to the Senate? We'll see how long this takes. However long it takes, there will be a partial shutdown. Scotty, you had some breaking stuff or some stuff we're watching?
Yeah. Well, this morning, or I guess last night, Don Lemon, he was arrested. They took him. He was covering, actually, he wasn't in Minnesota anymore. He was in Los Angeles covering the Grammys. And federal agents came and grabbed him, saying that he broke federal law by joining the protest, or covering the protest, I should say, that was in Minnesota at the Minnesota church. So they've got him detained, and obviously that violates a whole bunch of First Amendment and everything else. I mean, we're just he was also arrested with another independent journalist and two of the protesters that were there. So 4 people in total were arrested in conjunction with this. We're still waiting on details exactly what they're going to charge him with, basically.
I mean, we're Poland now. We're Saudi Arabia now. We're just...
I mean, yeah, we arrest them and then we'll figure it out later. The other big news that's happening, they finally released the rest of the Epstein files this morning. Todd Blanche did a long press conference where he basically said nothing and said that there are no men's names that have anything to do with, raping women or anything else like that, or abusing women. Yeah. But in total, they released 3 million documents and 2,000 videos. So nice little Friday dump.
Oh, I can't wait to get our hands on that again. Again, we promise we're not going to do the Epstein thing until it's time to do the Epstein thing. And next week, it might be time to do the Epstein thing again. That should be fun. Okay. All right. Let's get there. Let's do it. Let's come with me. Let's start to really get into what's happening in Fulton County and what it means on a larger scale and what it is betraying in terms of the Trump administration's goals heading into elections. And oh my God, we're going to start with the stuff we know. We're going to start with the stuff we know, and then we're going to get down the rabbit hole a little bit and scare the crap out of you. We're going to start with the stuff we know. One of the things we asked about, we're looking at, and said we're going to give it just a little bit of time, and maybe some answers will come to us about why was Tulsi Gabbard there? Why was Tulsi Gabbard there? Okay. Here's the thing about Tulsi Gabbard. She's more lame duck than her cult leader. She has been feckless. She has been impotent. She has been not involved in the basic running of her department. Ratcliffe has been doing her job. Period. For quite some time. She has fallen out of favor with Don quite a while ago. She was not involved in the Iran bombing at all, our DNI. She had absolutely no hand in planning the ouster of Maduro, our DNI. She had no input. It wasn't sought, her input. Wasn't needed, wasn't necessary. She's on the outs. She's not qualified for this job. Somebody else is doing her job for her. And President Trump has very little use for her. So he gave her a use. You see, instead of firing her and facing that type of embarrassment where we finally start to peel off some of these heads of these agencies because of how deeply unqualified they are and their actions reflecting on the Trump administration negatively. That's all very embarrassing for Trump, should he have to fire Tulsi Gabbard. So let's not fire her. Let's just get other people to do her job, and then we'll send her on a little wild goose chase. You see, for months, what Tulsi's actually been doing is studying information on voting machines, analyzing data from swing states, and deep diving into President Trump's conspiracies about the 2020 election and how it was stolen from him, how it was rigged. That's what she's been up to. Okay? And as far as the foreign aspect, we'll get into that as well. Why would the DNI have any hand in a domestic election issue? Well, they never have in the past, and it's certainly out of her, job's purview. This is not her territory, not her job. Why is she there? Well, she's been starting to lay the seeds around her office and the administration that there may have been some foreign interference in the 2020 election, and her presence is necessary, although she has not provided any evidence at all. None. Nobody has. DOJ, FBI, any Trump administration officials, and the DNI herself, Tulsi Gabbard, none of them have offered any evidence pointing to foreign election interference in the 2020 election. None of them. What does Carolyn Leavitt have to say about Tulsi's involvement? Quote, President Trump and his entire team are committed to ensuring a U.S. election can never, ever again be rigged. Whatever they say, the opposite is true, so they are right now ensuring that it will be rigged. We'll get to that. She went on, Director Gabbard is playing a key lead role in this important effort. You know what else she's been working on as we continue? Another thing she's been really hard at work on is proving that the Obama administration manufactured a false conspiracy about Russia interfering in the 2016 election to get Trump elected, to damage Hillary Clinton. She's been hard at work proving the Obama administration manufactured the whole thing, even though U.S. intelligence and multiple intelligence sources other than our own intelligence apparatus have all said, oh yeah, Russia definitely interfered and it was definitely in favor of Donald Trump. That's not, Tulsi's going to find you a different version. She's going to find you a different version. Okay. So Tulsi's wrapped up in this. This has been her baby. And she's going to go ahead and try to tie in foreign interference in the 2020 election. That's going to be her role in this. You see, multiple people have multiple roles in how this is going to play out and their ultimate goals. It starts with the seizure. Where does it go from here?
It's time for a quick break, then we break some more. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things.
Trump threatens to use Insurrection Act. Obviously, a lot of us called this, including you. It's an 1807 law. Keith Ellis, the Attorney General, responded to Trump's post by saying he would challenge such an action in court. He's already suing to try to stop the surge by the Department of Homeland Security. Tim Walz said, I'm making a direct appeal to the president. Let's turn the temperature down. Stop this campaign of retribution. This is not who we are. Well, it's who he is. It's who Trump is. But people are saying this out loud for a while now. This is what he wants: Insurrection Act, martial law, cancel. And he's made it was the second or third joke about canceling elections yesterday, right?
Yeah, and we can do no better than to quote federal court judge April Perry, who litigated Trump's attempted deployment of the military, federalized National Guard troops, to the streets of Chicago. Judge Perry said Donald Trump is pouring fuel on a fire he started. He wants to create the chaos and then use the chaos as an excuse to invoke the Insurrection Act and deploy the military.
So, Glenn, I vacillate between not wanting to get into despair or fear, but if we can count the number of times someone has said, don't worry about that, he can't do that, right? He can't cancel elections. Well, what do we do? I mean, obviously, Chuck Schumer, other people are talking about, like,
Now back to Brett Breaks Things, smashing spin, silencing the noise, and keeping it all facts, no fluff.
Okay. All right. Gabbard's wrapped up in this. She's wrapped all up in this. Now election integrity with a sprinkle of foreign interference. And Gabbard is all in this. She's so in this, by the way, that the National Association of the Secretaries of States on Friday are going to meet today. The National Association of Secretaries of State. Those are the people who play a central role in monitoring and administrating elections. They're going to have a meeting. And they're going to have a special guest speaker. They had to rearrange everything. It was going to be 3 guest speakers that just crowbarred themselves into this meeting This meeting of the most influential officials, state level, in making sure our elections are free and fair and secure. Pam Bondi, Kristi Noem, and Tulsi Gabbard have all crowbarred themselves into this meeting. They had to scramble. They had to make room, change the whole, the format of how this was all going to be done, the planning. All had to be changed to get these three women in. Now, since that was announced a little bit ago, Bondi has pulled out for sure, and Noem has signaled that maybe Gabbard might be there by herself, but Gabbard will be there. She will be there. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, and we're going to let this play out. And I promise you, somebody will anonymously go to some outlet and talk about what was discussed at that meeting. I'm guessing an outraged Democratic Secretary of State somewhere will run and leak information about this meeting because some bat crap, crazy stuff will be said from Gabbard. That's my prediction. But a few things about this, they just interest me. And I want to see how this plays out. One, what type of perspective and then subsequent demands might Gabbard present to these secretaries of state? What crazy conspiracy theory with no evidence might she float and hammer home in front of all of these Democratic and Republican secretaries of state? And then following that crap, what might she demand of them or threaten them with? We'll see. Two, what will Democratic secretaries of state in this meeting be compelled to say to Gabbard, Tulsi Gabbard? What might they feel they have an obligation to say to this woman in the face of whatever she might say, or even in the face of her being present at that raid? Could any of them be compelled to say something possibly contentious or accusatory? But more importantly, what might Democratic secretaries of state be afraid to say, or scared to say, or too intimidated to say? And three, how in lockstep and or sycophantic will the Republican secretaries of state be in the face of some crazy conspiracy nonsense and possible demands out of them? Will they toe the line? Will they push back? Voting, election integrity, this is one issue that we've seen Republicans are willing to stand firm on. We saw what happened in Indiana when the Trump administration demanded that Republicans in Indiana get a couple more districts by gerrymandering. They all pushed back. The House and state Senate majority leaders, Republicans, flat out said, we're not doing it. Now, their governor said, oh, you guys better do what Trump says. They weren't having it. We've seen other instances of Republicans just not having it when it comes to elections. Will that be enough? Oh, you've got it. Oh, okay. All right. Senator Mark Warren, you know what? I don't want to play that yet, Scotty. Hold on. We're going to get to him. Hold on a second, bud. We got some videos to play. I got to cue Scotty up on that, but I want to get, okay, we'll play it. I take it back. We'll play it. Play. This is Democratic Senator Mark Warner. He is speculating on why Tulsi was there. Go ahead and hit me with that, Scotty.
Reinforce to all of your listeners and viewers is that Tulsi Gabbard over this last year has literally taken apart what was called the Foreign Malign Influence Center, the center inside the intelligence community that was supposed to look at potential voter interference. Because again, she's still been an election denier. She is a sycophant that Donald Trump. The speculation, at least up here on the Hill, is that she's done such a dreadful job that she's been excluded from most of the national security activities of the last couple months. She's never been up here to brief, on Venezuela, Iran, or Greenland, you name it. And maybe this is some feeble attempt to get back in the good graces of her boss, Donald Trump, and to feed into his obsession about losing the 2020 election. That is at least some of the speculation up here.
Okay, it's not lost on some people. She's flat out an election denier. And now she, the DNI, is crowbarring herself in all of our election concerns, including a seizure of ballots in Fulton County. Okay. Let's talk about this seizure. And we'll keep touching on Gabbard a little bit, but let's really let this play out. Let's let this breathe. That's what you came for. That deep dive. The seizure. Let's talk about the seizure. First, some election officials in Fulton County are saying the whole thing is illegal, the seizure. It's illegal. What are they talking about? This tickled me. Turns out, in 2020 into 2021, a fringy right-wing conspiracy theorist group, thinking they're doing Donald Trump's bidding, sued the Fulton County Election Office for access to the ballots. They wanted to find the fraud. They wanted auditors to be able to look through these ballots and find the fraud. So they sued. In the face of the lawsuit, a decision had to be made. And before that decision was ultimately made, at the beginning of that suit, one Judge Brian Amaro decided, you know what? I'm sealing these ballots till we make a decision. All the ballots are sealed. No one can get them. So Garland Favorito and Voters GA, thinking they're doing their dear cult leader a big old favor by suing Fulton County, has made it illegal that the FBI has gone and gotten those ballots because a judge ordered them sealed. Let's start right there. Shooting themselves in the foot. That's the problem with cult members. They're zealous, sometimes to a fault. But how could they have seen the machinations of the Trump administration down the road this far? Regardless, because of their own cult members, what they did was illegal, technically. So, if this is illegal, how could they get around that little nasty bit, right? How can they justify it? What if they are held to account for seizing ballots that were seized by a judge? How can they be held to account? Okay, they got a way around this too. Now, this next little bit about the seizure, I'm going to refer to an op-ed piece by Miles Taylor. I'll give you a second. Miles Taylor. Do you remember who that is? Miles Taylor, he was the anonymous, I am a part of the resistance inside the Trump administration. You remember that nice little piece, that little anonymous op-ed piece from the first administration? Miles Taylor was inside the administration. He wrote that piece. He described the chaotic nature and the contentious nature, the back and forth, the give and take. Who's a guardrail? Who is facilitating? He spilled all the beans, and he was attacked by the Trump administration for a number of ways. Well, he writes op-ed pieces now, and here's the thing. Trump is now going to try to lean on an executive order that Miles helped write. Oh yeah, you want to know how they're going to get around this little pesky little sealing of these ballots by a judge, which was forced upon the ballots because his cult sued Fulton County? How's he going to get around it? I'm going to tell you how. And Miles Taylor here is going to give you a little bit of context on what he's going to use.
We'll be back to break it all down. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. Breaking news, breaking rules, breaking through. Back to Brett Breaks Things.
Okay. Miles Taylor, he helped write a little piece of legislation, an executive order, okay? Trump told us in an interview earlier this month, he told us, he signaled to us that the seize was coming. How do we know that? I did a report on this interview when it came out. Remember the interview where he said that he wished he seized the ballots in the 2020 election. Okay. He said he wished he seized the ballot. In that show, I told you about why one of the reasons he didn't, even though like lots of his staff said, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't do that. And he said, the one thing that stopped me was that the National Guard in that state, well, they're great guys and they do their job, but they're not politically savvy enough to do what was needed here to seize these ballots, which is a signal that they weren't weaponized politically properly. They'd actually go do their jobs, not, violate some kind of law or rights in order to appease Trump. They would just do their job, and that wouldn't be good enough. Okay, so he said he wanted to seize these ballots, okay? When he said it then, in 2020, and now, he actually has seized it, he's using an executive order to justify it. Executive Order 13484. Executive Order 13484 was written in 2018 by Miles Taylor. Not just Miles Taylor. It was in coordination with DHS, DOJ, CIA, and a few other agencies. They all came together to write this executive order. Not some crazy, weaponized, cultish order like the ones he's ripping off now. A concerted effort to have a positive outcome, a positive effect, an executive order with a purpose. That executive order, the central idea of that executive order that Miles himself helped write, was to basically make it easier to have real consequences for foreign actors who interfered with U.S. elections. It's about foreign interference in U.S. elections and giving the U.S. government more options and more power in coordination with all of these agencies to go after foreign election interferers, people who interfere with our elections who are foreign entities. We could go after them more effectively with harsher consequences. That was the point of the Executive Order 13848. That was the point. It does not allow the federal government, the administration, to revisit vote counts. It does not allow any agency of this government to rummage through ballot boxes. It does not allow a president to deploy the military against local election infrastructure because he doesn't like the outcome. It doesn't do any of that. It simply makes it easier to go after foreign entities who meddle in our elections. And here's the kicker. Here's the fun part. When it was originally brought to Trump, he didn't want to sign it. Why? I'll let Miles speculate on why he thought at the time and why he still thinks now. Because he knows, and the president knows, that Russia did interfere in the elections in 2016 in favor of Donald Trump. And Trump didn't want to go after Russia for this and dig up the details and punish the country that helped him so much. He didn't want to sign it. He stiff-armed it a couple times before he was finally convinced. Beautiful. And now he is using it not only to justify seizing these ballot boxes, but to justify Tulsi Gabbard's presence, right? Interference. Her role in all of this. Because it's a foreign entity's election meddling that this executive order seeks to uncover, punish, sanctions, whatever. All right, there it is. We've got a federal executive order that he claims says his FBI can grab those ballots because there may be foreign interference wrapped up in the 2020 election fraud. Nice and neat. Thank you, Miles. Thanks, bud. Thank you. Got it. Executive Order 13848. You're going to hear from it again. You're going to hear from it again when state and local officials sue the federal government for seizing these ballots in the face of a judge barring them, sealing them, making them unavailable. They're going to sue, and he's going to say, well, look, Executive 13848, boom, I can grab him. There's been foreign interference. Okay, we're just getting warmed up. I'm telling you, we're just getting warmed up. Now, John Ossoff, Democratic senator, up for re-election, 2026. All right? He had something to say about this. My constituents in Georgia and I think much of the American public are quite reasonably alarmed in asking questions after the director of national intelligence was spotted bizarrely and personally lurking in an FBI evidence truck in Fulton County, Georgia yesterday. He is not the only one sounding the alarm on this. He's not the only one. Fulton County Elections Chief Sherry Allen said they took 700 boxes. County Commissioner Chairman Rob Pitts, you heard from him yesterday, he said local officials no longer can be held responsible for whatever happens. Quote, once they left the facility last night in those FBI trucks, I don't know where they are now. I don't know what they're doing with them. Are they opening up the boxes? Are they stuffing other ballots in there? I have no clue. Whoa, Rob. Now, although Rob has a right to be worried, what they're going to do is so much more sophisticated than just stuffing those ballots illegally and then handing them back and pointing to, oh, there's fraud. You didn't count those 11,780 votes that President Trump was looking for on the phone call with Brian Kemp. We found them. That sounds nice, Rob, and I understand why you're excited, but what they've got planned is so much more sophisticated. I'm personally, in light of some things that are being uncovered now, I am personally not worried about that, Rob. My worries run much deeper. Much deeper. Let's talk about another unusual fact about that raid that I said, what is this? Oh, here we go. All right, we talked about why Tulsi was there. And we'll bring it up again. But now let's talk about why the prosecutor on the federal warrant was from Missouri. Thomas Albus, the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Missouri. Why him? Why him? All right, Thomas Albus has been recently given the task to oversee election integrity across the country. Special little position Pam Bondi has given him. He is overstepping the U.S. Attorney in the Atlanta area, a guy named Theodore Hertzberg. Why wasn't Theodore Hertzberg on that warrant instead of this guy, Thomas Albus from Missouri? Okay. So this guy Albus has a special role within the Justice Department investigating nationwide election integrity. Brand new position that Pam has given him. All right, that's a little cover. Maybe if you just scratch a little bit and you say, why this guy? You can say, oh, well, Pam gave him the position to oversee nationwide election integrity. That's why him. No. It gets a little weirder. It gets a little too coincidental. Another person that was at that raid was FBI Deputy Director Andrew Bailey. He's brand new. Remember when Bongino stepped down? He is now your Deputy Director, your number 2 at the FBI. He is a former Missouri Attorney General. Missouri. Again, we've got a federal warrant from Missouri with a prosecutor from Missouri in the U.S. District for Eastern Missouri, and you've got a former AG from Missouri at the site. Missouri again. It's weird. I want you to know that Mr. Bailey, by the way, he has previously endorsed Trump's conspiracy theories that the 2020 election was rigged. Yep. Put him right in that same category with Tulsi and a bunch of these other people that I'm about to give you names who are in the middle of all of this. Election denier after conspiracy theorist after election denier down the line. So Tulsi and now Andrew Bailey, an election denier, a conspiracy theorist, was there as well. Former AG of Missouri. Okay. Bailey even claimed while running for re-election for AG, he claimed, quote, the left stole the election. The left stole the election. The election. As far as that 2020 election goes, let's just set this record straight before we continue. Let's just set the record straight because the record has been straight for quite some time, and it was set straight by quite a few Republicans as far as was the 2020 election rigged. Brian Kemp said in 2023 that the 2020 election was not stolen. For nearly 3 years now, anyone with evidence of fraud has failed to come forward under oath and prove anything in a court of law. Our elections in Georgia are secure, accessible, and fair, and will continue to be as long as I'm governor. That was Brian Kemp. Okay. In Arizona, the Trump administration and all of his allies claimed the election was rigged there. Rusty Bowers, a staunch conservative Republican and Speaker of the Arizona House, said, I do not want to be a winner by cheating. I will not play with laws I swore an allegiance to uphold. Okay. William Barr, Trump's AG. They obviously were influencing a lot of people, members of the public, that there was a systematic corruption in the system and that their votes didn't count and that these machines controlled by somebody else were actually determining it, and which is all complete nonsense. I told them that it was crazy stuff and they were wasting their time and that it was doing a grave disservice to the country. Vice President Mike Pence, despite what former president and his allies have said for more than 2.5 years and continue to insist, the Georgia election was not stolen. There have been multiple recounts, multiple audits, no fraud. Trump and his allies brought over 60 lawsuits across 7 states. On almost every single one of them, they lost. What ones didn't they lose? Well, there was like 2. And it was around Pennsylvania. There were 2 rulings in Pennsylvania that excluded a handful of ballots that were deemed to be fraudulent. And I'm talking a handful. How small? We're talking a few hundred. So a couple judges said, yeah, this few hundred ballots here, you've given us enough evidence that they, and only they, will be excluded. It wasn't a drop in the bucket compared to Biden's lead there. Made no difference. They lost across the country time and time again. Everything's been debunked. And don't forget, Trump and his allies face charges in Fulton County for election interference. Sidney Powell already pled guilty to related charges, while the rest of them, although they enjoy a federal pardon by Trump, they are not pardoned from state charges. That is ongoing. Fani Willis, they got her out, and it delayed the process, but there's a new prosecutor, and they are going forward with those investigations. So let's just orient ourselves on all of this fraudulent 2020 election talk that we keep circling back to. The heart of all of these efforts. Or is it? Or is there more going on here? Is it simply to make President Trump to vindicate the conspiracy theories he's been pushing? Or is it more nefarious? Is it more nefarious as well? Going forward. Man, Missouri. I keep turning around. I keep looking around. Missouri. Why? When I tell you why, it will be time to hold on to your butts.
Breaking politics, breaking narratives, breaking news. But first, we need a call. You're back with Brett Breaks Things, where the truth hits harder than the headlines.
Life in the White House. It's a big deal, actually.
What was Tulsi Gabbard doing at an election center in Georgia today?
She's working very hard on trying to keep the election safe, and she's done a very good job. And they, as you know, they got into the votes. They signed judge's order in Georgia, and you're going to see some interesting things happening. They've been trying to get there for a long time.
Will this be pulling back immigration?
Okay. So Trump out here rehashing, talking about voter fraud, talking about, I mean, look, he has been posting lately about this. He reposted claims that Italian military satellites had been used to hack into U.S. voting machines. He posted that just recently. Foreign interference. He posted just recently China reportedly coordinated the whole operation. The CIA oversaw it and the FBI covered it up, all to install Biden as a puppet. Foreign influence. Gabbard. He said this is only the beginning. Prosecutions are coming. That Italian spy story, by the way, that had some legs at one point, and it had legs with lawyer Sidney Powell. Lawyer Sidney Powell, she hasn't really been in the forefront since she pled guilty to charges of election interference in Fulton County. She's been kind of quiet until now, until she was posted with our weaponization czar, Ed Martin, who's from Missouri. What the hell are we talking about? I am going to tell you what we are talking about right now. And I'm going to go down this rabbit hole. I'm going to take you with me, and we're going to go down and we're going to meet Greg Bluestein, and we're going to meet Adam Cochran down the middle of that rabbit hole. They're down there waiting for us. Why those two gentlemen? Bluestein, in a Twitter post, talking about the mysteries of the federal raid in Fulton County, mentioning a company called Liberty Vote. Liberty Vote, the company that bought Dominion. And then Adam Cochran, he goes a little further. He takes that handoff and he runs with it. He says, here's the sequence of events that is about to play out. He's looking down the rabbit hole. He went down it, and he's waiting for us. Liberty Vote buys Dominion Voting. Liberty Vote, by the way, is out of Missouri. Here's what Adam Corcoran said, and then I'm going to disseminate it because even his wording here is so clandestine and it's encrypted what he's saying, but we're going to decrypt it right now. He says Trump ally buys voting company, claims tampering, files it federally, forces a judge to approve a warrant, and then Trump can pardon federal perjury charges if it ever surfaces. Okay. All right. That was a lot. In a little bit of time. What the hell is he talking about? I'm going to tell you right now what he's talking about and what we are watching in real time play out and how that fits in a bigger picture affecting not just the 2026 elections, but the 2028 elections. Here we friggin' go. Are you ready? CEO of NoInc, a company that makes electronic poll books. It is owned, and its founder is CEO Scott Lendecker. Okay, let's start right there. Scott Lendecker, who makes electronic polling devices out of Missouri. He is a Trump ally. He is a Republican political activist. He rubs elbows with the most elite of Republican allies at the moment. His company, NoInc, buys Dominion. They rename it Liberty Vote. That's step one. Trump ally buys Dominion. Step two. Lendicker comes out and says, okay, we have found evidence within Dominion's, all of everything they have, everything they own, all the information they have, everything we've looked at in terms of their machines, how the votes were counted, where, all the evidence that Dominion has in its possession that we bought, we have found there was fraud. Hypothetically, let's say this all starts in motion with Scott Lendicker lying and saying we found fraud in Dominion's machines. Could be foreign. They lie. The whole point of buying the company, but not the whole point. Not the whole point. But they lie. They lie. They say we found fraud. We bought Dominion and we found fraud. Just like Lindell and Trump and Powell and all of them said there was. Fox News, OAN, Newsmax, they all said it. Dominion voting machines were hacked. We found it. We bought this company and look what we found. Step 3. Because it's a federal election issue, and in extension, could be under the purview of Executive Order 13848, it becomes a federal issue. So, it becomes a federal issue, and they get a federal warrant. A federal issue becomes a federal warrant from a judge to go seize the Fulton County ballots because Scott Lendicker found evidence that the machines in Fulton County, which were Dominion machines, were compromised. They were compromised. They get a federal warrant. They seize the ballots. Now, let's say anyone ever finds out that Scott lied. Whistleblower, separate investigation, a change of administration, and a DOJ investigation, whatever. Trump, at any point, gives anybody involved a federal pardon because it's a federal matter involving a federal warrant. Any lying, perjury, malfeasance, fraud involving what Scott Lendicker claims he found in those machines that were used in Fulton County. Well, if it's found out he lied, did any of that, well, I'll just give you a federal pardon. We're done here. I can't pardon you state level, but I can pardon you federal level. Trust me, Scott. I got you. Give me what I need. Just tell me there's fraud in those Dominion voting machines that you now have a hold of because you bought. Just tell me, and we'll take it from there. What is the outcome of all of this? Why, Brett? Why? Because now they have seized the ballots according to a federal warrant. And if you want any of this other stuff to play out, like proving that Scott's lying, well, we'll let that play out. Who knows how long that might take? And when it's done playing out, maybe it gets kicked to the Supreme Court. Who knows? We'll see. In the meantime, they've got the ballots. They've got them. They seized them. What he lamented that he didn't do in 2020, he did now. And he's got coverage. He's got the executive order 13848 saying I'm allowed to do this even though a judge barred him. He's got Scott Lendicker, who owns the Dominion machines, saying, hey, we found fraud, allegedly. And if he should be found to be lying, Trump pardons him. Wonderful. Let's keep going down that rabbit hole. In October, Lendicker bought this company, Dominion, renamed it Liberty Vote, said it was going to have a paper ballot focus, prioritize facilitating third-party auditing, and committed to domestic staffing and software development. All three of those things have been points that the far-right conspiracy theorists have been demanding since the election. All of these things, again and again, the conspiracy theorists have been demanding these things over and over to ensure election integrity. Oh yeah, Scott is a bit of an election conspiracy theorist. Now in control of Dominion voting machines. Let's really talk about it. Let's really talk about the elections. Now that you know who Scott Lydecker is and what he allegedly could have done, why all of these officials out of Missouri are now embroiled deeply within this seizure in Fulton County. Now you're seeing it. Now you're seeing it. Dominion equipment is used across 26 states plus Puerto Rico. And his no-ink electronic poll books, that replaces the traditional paper balloting, that is used in 29 states, including the District of Columbia. And there are jurisdictions across 14 states, including 20 million registered voters, that both are in play. Dominion machines in lockstep with no-ink electronic voter registration. Both. Meaning in those districts, in those jurisdictions, he has complete control over election integrity. We're talking registration of voters, the casting of ballots, and the tabulation of the ballots after they've been cast. All three phases of elections in those 14 states are controlled by Scott Lydecker. Election conspiracy theorist, Republican backer, Republican ally, and activist. People are shouting about this. Some are, but it's not making the rounds. They're talking about his close ties to the Republican Party. They're talking about his conspiracy theories tied into the 2020 election. And this looks really bad. This looks really bad. So prior to Lydecker acquiring Dominion, Dominion had lawsuits against Fox, OAN, Lindell. We're talking $1.6 billion here against Rudy Giuliani, $1.3 billion, Sidney Powell, $1.3 billion. Well, they did settle with some of these companies before Lydecker took control for hundreds of millions of dollars. But a stipulation of Lydecker buying the company was that he settle the rest of the cases for Powell, Newsmax, Giuliani, and some other close Trump allies, that he settle with them for terms that were favorable to those Trump allies. So favorable that they were undisclosed. This guy is completely weaponized. He's completely in the tank and in control of much of our elections. I'm coming right back for overtime. We're not done.
It's time for a quick break, then we break some more. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. Brett Breaks Things, fighting for America one mic drop at a time.
Are you concerned that this raid on the search of the Fulton County Elections Office, that it's going to be used as a pretext come 26 or even 28?
Yes. The first few months of the second Trump administration, when people asked me this question, I wasn't that concerned. I am more concerned now. It is absolutely critical that we protect the integrity of our elections. Make sure these are still one state and local. I'm even concerned that some of the agencies that used to help states get up to snuff, are they so politicized now that they could undermine states' efforts? There's a ton of questions that I never thought we'd have to ask in this country. And, maybe this week, as we're seeing the White House and some of the Republicans find their spine about the abuses that are taking place with ICE, maybe some folks will be willing to stand up for our democracy. But I can tell you from the Intelligence Committee standpoint, and making sure we monitor the foreign interference and then also make sure any other activity, we got to stay on it. And one of the things that I think we need to make sure that is included in any kind of ICE reform is we don't want these roving patrols of ICE agents suddenly showing up at polling stations during primaries or general elections. We may have a major vote in Virginia about redistricting. That's got to be a reform as well. The level of intimidation that the feds could bring on voters all across the country, if it doesn't worry you, it should.
Are you concerned that
level of intimidation on voters? Oh man, they are rigging the game. How incredible and scary and just, it feels like the sword of Damocles. Jeff Lydecker feels like, Scott Lydecker feels like the sword of Damocles hanging over our heads in this election. Intimidation of voters. Intimidating the voters. Rigging the game. Let me give you just a little bit of context on Atlanta, real quick, on Fulton County, before we get to the overall picture. Let me just show you the multi-pronged attack on our elections that is taking place. Multifaceted, multi-pronged. It's not just on the macro level with Scott Lydecker owning Dominion and controlling all of those votes right now. It's on a micro level too. Let's just talk about Fulton County for just a second. Georgia is the quintessential swing state. Quintessential. Goes red in a presidential election, then holds a special election a little time later, and 2 Democratic senators are elected. From county to county and statewide, it is the quintessential swing state. And it is the state that you could look to that sunk his 2020 election. It's the one state you could say, if he had won Georgia, it would have all been different. It would have all been different. Fulton County. That is the heart of Georgia elections. Atlanta. The heart of Georgia elections. That's why we're here. That's why we are waging all-out war on election integrity in Atlanta, in Fulton County. This is why we're doing it. This is why it's happening. You want to see what they're doing? You want to see what they're doing to get this back? It's so filthy. Now, you already know about some of the laws in Georgia that you can't give them bottles of water, things like that. And you know that there had been 6-hour-long lines to vote in Fulton County and Atlanta area purposefully. Less polling places, right? Long lines to dissuade minority voters from voting in those elections. Okay? But that's just the beginning. You see, once they started in with that little brutal campaign of making voting just an unbearable experience for black voters, they saw that black voters then adjusted, evolved. And in 2020, 1,084,021 ballots were cast in drop boxes, pre-voting drop boxes. Okay, that's what we're talking about. Pre-voting drop boxes. So instead of be subject to these draconian measures used by Republicans in the state to dissuade them from voting, the long lines, no water, all of that, they said, fine, we get it. We get what you're doing here. And they've been using pre-ballot drop boxes. Pre-ballot. 1 million plus used the drop boxes in Georgia, in Atlanta. And the Republicans saw this, and Brian Kemp started an all-out war on the drop boxes, okay? First, he slashed the number of overall drop boxes allowed in Atlanta by 77%. Then, he cut the time period you have to early vote from 60 days out to just 7. So if you wanted to early vote, you had this minuscule little timeline that you better make it happen by. You had 2 months. Now you've got 1 week. And the reason many of these drop boxes were used is because a lot of these people have a job or 2. or 2. And the only time they could vote were off hours, late at night, or way early in the morning on the way to their early jobs. Drop off in the ballot box. Drop it in the ballot box on the way to work. We can't afford to sit around in these election lines on a work day. That seems very obvious. So what did Brian Kemp do? Closed the drop boxes in night hours. From whatever it was in the morning, I'm not sure exactly, right, to like 5 o'clock at night. That's the only time you could use the drop boxes. All out war. What effect did it have? In the next major election cycle after 2020, Brian Kemp, he began this war on drop boxes between 2020 and 2021, signed the bill SB 202 that put all of this in place in 2021. What happened in 2022? The number of drop box ballots went from over 1 million to under 200,000. They won. Got them. Go back to those 6-hour lines. No bottles of water. No using those drop boxes the way you were using them before to give us your one vote. We're not interested in your vote, blacks in Fulton County. We don't want them. You cost us too much. You cost us too much. And it worked. It worked. Now, I'm going to really scare you. We're talking campfire, spooky shadows, flashlight lit under my face, scare the crap out of you time. There is a woman who does op-ed pieces named Bryn Tannehill. I'll tell you a little bit about Bryn Tannehill. She is a naval aviator, and after her military career, she went to work with some of the biggest defense contractors America deals with. Since leaving her position at the contractor, she's been writing stories. One of the outlets she's been writing for is Byline Times. Byline Times. Check it out. Writing for Byline Times, Bryn, in November of 2024, predicted the rapid militarization of Donald Trump and his use of the National Guard and threatening military troops. She predicted it all. She predicted it all. In February 2025, she predicted the ouster of Maduro. And she also predicted the Trump administration's pressure on Denmark to acquire Greenland. She predicted it all. Very intelligent, very plugged in. Let me tell you about her new prediction. I'm not going to spend too much time. I'm going to quickly scare the crap out of you. She begins her little prediction, and you please go check it out at bylinetimes.com. Please go check it out for yourself. But I'm going to give you just the good stuff. Just the scary stuff. She begins her prediction talking about Project 2025 and the Heritage Foundation and their unitary executive theory and how it has played out. It's all the stuff you knew in terms of that, how Congress has absolutely bent over and spread its cheeks for everything the administration has wanted, handed him the purse, how SCOTUS rules for him time and time again, how he has been granted immunity. She kind of lays all that out. This is all unfolding as the Project 2025 had laid out. Okay? And she also describes how the Republican Party is increasingly behaving like it believes it will never face a competitive election again. She talks about Trump's horrible poll numbers, not just on divisive issues, but issues that should be slam dunks for the Republican Party, like immigration, foreign policy. She says, she lays out that the polls say nobody's in favor of the way Trump is running the country, yet he double and triples down on his bullcrap, has shown no signs of slowing up, no signs that any of this will affect him or his party going forward. Why? Let's do it. This is all what she is theorizing. This is all what she is theorizing. And she has laid out what it would look like if President Trump or the Republicans as a whole steal the election. But not just steal the election. Other measures they might take. Here we go. She says first, she predicts that the Republicans will prevent real good Democratic candidates from running. Okay, we've already watched him vindictively prosecute Comey and James, right? We've watched this. We know he's capable of it. She's saying, look, if a Democratic candidate emerges that looks like he could beat Trump or Vance or whoever, they will try to take him off the playing field. They will try to remove him from the board preemptively. Okay? Short of that, she continues on, well, okay, so what if a Democratic candidate emerges in the race, okay, and into the election? Let's say they all get past that. We're going to keep going, well, if they get past that, if they get past that, if they get past that. That's how we're going to do this. So if we do get a qualified, good Democratic candidate to actually run in the elections, there are a number of things they could do. There are a number of things they can do to stop a change of power. One, she also lays out how Scott Lineker purchased Dominion. And she lays out how, look, she's saying flatly, Scott will put his finger on the scale. Scott, using his Dominion machines and his no electronic registration, he will commit fraud to facilitate a Republican winning. She's just flat out saying it. We gave you the story. You know who he is. Now you've oriented yourself on who this guy is and what he controls. And she's saying that guy could cost us the election. She's saying, one, he could do it and not get caught. Or two, he could do it and Trump simply doesn't investigate. No DOJ, no FBI, just refuses to investigate or prosecute in any way. You say a whistleblower says there's evidence. Somebody else has evidence. There's evidence that he did this. We don't feel that way. We are not going to prosecute. Okay. Let's talk about the 12th Amendment. If there is any irregularity in any way where we can't trust the presidential elections nationwide, it could fall to the House to choose who's president. In that instance, the House has 3 top candidates to choose from, and each state delegation gets 1 vote for president. Okay, but here's the problem. There are more Republican states than Democrat states, flat out. Because each delegation, we're talking all of the representatives from that state, they all get 1 vote. There are more red states than blue states. They will simply all vote for the same red candidate. Done. Let's say they get through that. Let's say it looks like a blue candidate won. It goes to the House, and somehow, the House votes for that candidate. They go to SCOTUS. And they say it was rigged. Considering how SCOTUS has been ruling lately, is it out of the realm of possibility that they simply hand them the victory? In some way, some form, legitimize claims this time, avoiding 60 lost lawsuits statewide. The SCOTUS simply decides, we see evidence that it was rigged. We have decided Donald Trump or J.D. Vance is the president. Okay. Now we're going to go on red alert. Those are bad enough. Now we're going to go on red alert. Stay with me. You remember Mike Pence and what he faced and what he went through? was asked under threat of guillotine to not certify the election? Okay. Do you think J.D. Vance will listen to his lawyers and listen to his conscience and publicly state that he does not have the authority to overturn the election? Do you think J.D. will do that? What if J.D. is the presidential nominee for the Republicans? What if J.D. loses the general election to a Democrat? And when it comes to him, will he certify it? Will he certify election results that result in him losing the presidential election? Will he do that? Will he do that? Now we're going in full red alert. This I promise you. If a Republican loses the general election, and we get that far, where J.D. Vance has to certify the election, there will be another January 6th. That's a promise from me and Bryn to you. There will be another January 6th. What if the mob gathers and this time Donald federalizes the Washington, D.C. city government and allows the insurrection to succeed? No National Guard, no D.C. Metro Police, no Capitol Police, withdraws them, under order, withdraws them, and a mob rushes and completely stops the certification process, declares martial law in the face of this actual insurrection, starts pointing fingers, and we don't vote again. How much of that is pure fantasy? The Scott Lydecker stuff, him being in control of Dominion, that's not pure fantasy. That's not pure fantasy. And they've already set up the guardrails to ensure that they can get away with it, that nobody will go to jail over anything that Scott decides to do. We already played that out. We already showed you. We already told you. So the Scott Lydecker stuff, that is not fantasy. No, it's not. Is city and state officials not willing to certify the election? Is that fantasy? That's what would precipitate the House having to decide. If state and local officials say, you know what? State officials say, you know what? We're not certifying these results out of our state. The results came in, our Republican candidate lost, and we refuse to certify it. Is that fantasy? It damn near happened in 2020. Are we going to face another fake electors scheme? One that isn't investigated by the DOJ? Is the JD thing fantasy? Man, could it all hinge on JD? What if he is the Republican nominee for president and decides not to certify the election results that say he lost? And is it pure fantasy? I feel like you are absolutely on board with me that there's going to be another J6 if the Republicans lose. It just is what is going to happen. Is it pure fantasy that Don calls off the dogs and allows the mob to rush the Capitol and stop the certification? Is it fantasy? What percentage would you put that in your mind right now? Just knowing what you know right now. Is it 0? It can't be, right? It can't be. I encourage you to go back behind me, Byline Times, the Washington Post, where I got some of this stuff. Please go check it out for yourself. Go check it out for yourself. We will have probably quite a bit of Epstein stuff for you Monday. But I feel like I have sufficiently scared the crap out of you for today. So I'm going to let you go into the weekend and recover. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, guys. I'll see you next week.